and welcome to another episode of A Brief History. Today's episode, King's Quest. Ready, set, go!
Simi Valley, California, 1980. During some of the earliest days of computer gaming, married couple Ken and Roberta Williams founded a game development publishing company called Online Systems. Inspired by the text adventure games of the day, yet dissatisfied with their text-only format, Roberta approached Ken with the idea of developing their own adventure game that would actually feature real graphics. This game eventually became known as Mystery House and was released on May 5th, 1980 for the Apple II. Not bad, huh?
The object of Mystery House was to explore a mansion which houses a murderer, with the ultimate goal being to discover this murderer's identity, and all of this was done by simply typing commands into the game in order to trigger different events. Mystery House went on to become one of the most groundbreaking and best-selling computer games of its time, which is surprising by today's standards considering it looked like this, and it was initially sold in Ziploc bags. Following the success of Mystery House, that same year, Online Systems released Wizard and the Princess for the Apple II.
Surprisingly enough, Wizard and the Princess was able to break ground on top of what was already accomplished by Mystery House by being the first ever graphic adventure game to be made in color. Wizard and the Princess's plot was incredibly simple, as one may expect from the time. The game takes place in the land of Serenia, where the princess of the land, Priscilla, has been kidnapped by the evil wizard Harlan. Priscilla's father, King George, has called out to the citizens of the land, offering half of his kingdom to whoever could rescue his daughter, setting the player off on their journey.
This game was yet another sandwich bag hit for Online Systems, selling over 60,000 copies and later seeing re-releases for the Apple II Plus, Atari 400 and 800, Commodore 64, IBM PC, and more. And it was the success of Mystery House and Wizard and the Princess that launched Online Systems into an incredibly prolific career, releasing over 30 different titles between 1980 and 1984. But it was in the year of 1983 that Online Systems, now known as Sierra Online, struck major success with yet another technologically advanced adventure game known simply as King's Quest. Released in July of 1983 as a launch title for the IBM PC Junior, King's Quest essentially took most of the story and conceptual elements from Wizard and the Princess and expanded upon them greatly with fully animated and interactive color graphics.
King's Quest found the player assuming the role of Sir Graham of Daventry in a quest to find 3 legendary treasures in order to end the kingdom of Daventry's recent suffering and become king. And all of this was done through 2 actions: typing commands and walking around the world using the keyboard. Yet another technological advancement found in this game. And once again, this effort paid off greatly for Sierra, for King's Quest was an incredible success for the company, being re-released over the next few years on everything from the Tandy 1000 and Amiga to MS-DOS and even the Sega Master System. Did I say 6X? Paging Dr. Freud.
So by this point, after 4 years in business, Sierra had really hit it big with their first King's Quest game and were, of course, ready and willing to follow up. The first of these follow-ups came in the form of King's Quest II: Romancing the Throne, released for PC in May of 1985. This sequel kept to the formula established in King's Quest I pretty strictly, simply expanding upon the previous game's scope with a bigger story and even an opening cutscene.
And King's Quest II was then succeeded on October 1st, 1986 by King's Quest III, To Err as Human for Apple II and DOS, which stood out from its predecessors by introducing a new setting and main character as well as a fast travel system, both of which were decisions that didn't quite sit well with some fans. But despite this, King's Quest II and III were still received very well from the majority of fans and critics alike.
Over the next few years, Sierra kept their now beloved King's Quest series going strong, with an enhanced DOS re-release of King's Quest II in 1987, followed by King's Quest IV: The Perils of Rosella in 1988, King's Quest V: Absence Makes the Heart Go Yonder in 1990, an enhanced remake of King's Quest I in 1990, which wasn't very well liked, King's Quest VI: Air Today Gone Tomorrow in 1992, and King's Quest VII: The Princeless Bride in 1994. Roman numerals, man. All of which were released for MS-DOS, Windows, and Mac, with King's Quest 4, 5, and 6 also seeing releases for the Amiga, and King's Quest 5 in particular even being ported to the Nintendo Entertainment System.
Every single one of these games were incredibly well received, and each brought their own unique innovation to the series. King's Quest 4 introduced sound cards for better audio quality, as well as a 24-hour real-time gameplay system, and King's Quest 5 took a bold step away from its predecessors by removing the command typing mechanic that the series was known for in favor of a more accessible point-and-click interface. It was also the first game in the series to feature voice acting in a later CD-ROM revision released in 1993.
Often considered the creative peak of the series, King's Quest 6 broke molds with a fully voice-acted 3D introduction cutscene, and the deepest plotline that the series had seen up to that point, complete with multiple endings. In addition to this, just like the game before it, King's Quest 6 also saw an enhanced CD-ROM re-release in 1993 that featured in-game voice acting. And finally, King's Quest 7 set itself apart by being the first game in the franchise to feature 2 playable protagonists who are swapped out between each chapter of the game's story. It was also the only game in the series to use a more cartoony Disney style of character design and a far more simplistic interface.
And after the incredible success of King's Quest VI, some of these changes didn't exactly sit well with some fans and critics, landing King's Quest VII a more mixed to positive response compared to the critical acclaim of its predecessors. So by 1994, a whole decade after its creation, the King's Quest franchise had a total of 7 hit games under its feather-tipped cap, each with multiple different versions, re-releases, ports, and updates. And throughout all 7 entries in the series, the King's Quest formula at its core had remained virtually largely untouched.
Now, despite building much of their fanbase and reputation via their point-and-click adventure games, by the late 90s, Roberta and Ken Williams had become convinced that the traditional point-and-click adventure game was essentially dead. So when it finally came time to follow up on King's Quest VII, Sierra chose to completely rework the formula, and the end result was a massive shock to the system for King's Quest fans. Released for Windows PC in December of 1998, King's Quest Mask of Eternity attempted to bring the King's Quest series into 3D, as was the trend with many older video game franchises at the time. However, rather than simply bringing the now mastered King's Quest formula into 3D, Sierra made many interesting decisions regarding how Mask of Eternity would play. This game did retain a point-and-click system similar to that of its predecessors, but on the whole, Mask of Eternity was an action RPG in the vein of The Legend of Zelda and The Elder Scrolls.
The player was now able to freely move around and explore an open-world 3D version of Daventry in either third or first person. And for the first time ever in the series, King's Quest Mask of Eternity introduced a heavy focus on combat, something virtually no other previous games had, other than scripted, non-playable sequences. Mix all of this with the game's overall darker tone, and you have what is often considered the black sheep of the King's Quest franchise, feeling far, far removed from all 7 games that preceded it. And this was reflected in the game's reception. Review scores for King's Quest VIII were mostly mixed, with many critics being split over the inclusion of combat and RPG mechanics. However, despite this, Mask of Eternity went on to be one of the best-selling adventure games of 1998, even outselling Grim Fandango.
But unfortunately, following the release of King's Quest Mask of Eternity, the series quickly went silent, as Sierra had gone through multiple changes in ownership and division of the company ever since 1996. Several companies, including Vivendi Games, Silicon Knights, and even Telltale Games, were all given their chance to do their own take on a 9th installment. However, each of these projects were cancelled before development could really get underway. As a result of this, over the next 15 years, the closest thing to King's Quest games that the world would see were fan-made remakes, as well as the Homestar Runner browser game Peasant's Quest.
And the trouble comes in the night. Not tonight, he doesn't come in the night. Trogdor.
A hilarious parody and well-made tribute, but not enough to fill the void.
It would not be until August 2014, 30 years after the release of the first King's Quest, that the company Activision would announce that they were revitalizing the Sierra Company, and that development for a new episodic series of King's Quest games was being helmed by a company known as the Odd Gentleman. And it was on July 28, 2015 that King's Quest Chapter 1, A Night to Remember, was released for PC, PS3, and PS4, with Xbox 360 and Xbox One versions released the next day. I assume because Microsoft's power went out or something.
Technically a prequel to the entire series, King's Quest 2015 brings back the classic, more lighthearted style of the original 7 King's Quest games, while also lovingly updating it to fit in more with the modern gaming scene. With gorgeous cel-shaded 3D graphics, hand-painted textures and atmospheric effects, and occasional gameplay variants such as first-person arrow shooting and a few QuickTime events. A Night to Remember received very positive reviews, most of which averaged out at around an 8 out of 10. However, this game is only Chapter 1 of King's Quest 2015. With Chapter 2, Rebel Without a Cause, scheduled for a fall of 2015 release, and 3 more chapters plus an epilogue planned for release in the future, A Night to Remember really is just a taste of what's to come.
King's Quest was arguably one of the most influential and innovative franchises in computer gaming history. From being the first computer game to have animated graphics to giving those graphics voices to match, King's Quest was built on finding a new and interesting way to tell an immersive story through gaming, a philosophy which the series still carries to this day. In fact, King's Quest was so good at storytelling that it even inspired a handful of novels released during the mid-1990s. But of course, what made King's Quest so special was its ability to convey a true sense of wonder and adventure through gaming at a time when video games looked like this. And now that the series is back, after nearly 2 decades, that sense of adventure is stronger, more engaging, and more exhilarating than ever. Thanks for watching, guys. DFTBA.
Hello, I am Dan Avedon, also known as Danny Sexbang, and thanks to Ryder for having me on this episode of Did You Know Gaming. Thank you to Ryder and the Game Theorists for having me on their channel. It was a damn delight. And I love King's Quest, so it was super fun to do. If you want to check out what I do, I'm on a show called Game Grumps every day, where we talk over video games and laugh like fools! Fools, I say! And there's a link there in that area. And I'm also in a band called Ninja Sex Party, where I dress in spandex and we sing songs about dinosaurs and dicks and romance and other important issues of the day. Oh, one more thanks goes out to Ryder for cutting this episode together to make it look as if I really knew what I was doing and executed the script flawlessly, when in fact I was burping and screwing up constantly. Actually, you know what? Here's a little compilation of all the ways I blew it during the recording of this episode. See you later.
Okay. Hello, Ryder. This is Danny. I'm gonna read your King's Quest script, and it's going to be great. I will this up many times, but hopefully you'll have enough to go on. All right, here we go. Roberta approached Ken with the idea of developing their own game. F you. Not you, Ryder. Sorry. The game takes place in a kind of Serenia. In the land of Serenia. Oh boy. A lot of new words I'm encountering on this one. Let me take a quick look. Wizard and the Princess's plot was incredibly simple and was as... Ryder. King's Quest found the player assuming the role of Sir Graham of Daventry in a quest to find 3 legendary treasures in order to... And all of this was done through 2 actions. Sorry, Barry. Barry is patiently... Never mind. Don't put that in. But despite this, King's Quest 2 and 3... Wow. But this... Every single one of these games were incredibly well received, and each brought their own... Ryder! Wait. Something's coming. Something's happening. That was halfway. That wasn't satisfying. It's alright. Doesn't matter. With Xbox 360 and Xbox One versions released the next day. I assume because Microsoft's power went out or something. I just have to say DFTBA, which stands for Don't Forget to Be Awesome. Or dumb ferrets throwing bats around. Okay.